Community of the Wild Goose. My name's Henry, and if you are new, you're welcome, and you were welcome even before you came. And for those of you who are here for the first time, we want to let you know that we are the largest megachurch in the world. It may not look like it, but the reason is because, what is there, 79 billion people in the world? Something like that? I might give or take one or two. So we include all the billions. We are part of. That makes us a large community. We just happen to be only us in this gathering in this room. Welcoming the agapaho love of God. We've heard of agape, the unconditional love of God. What we practice is agapaho love, which is the welcoming love of God. I don't have to know you to welcome you. That's the mystery of Christ inclusiveness, is that we begin by welcoming, not handing out prerequisites. As Nadia Bowles-Weber says, we don't care what you believe as long as you know you belong. And that's been unheard of, isn't it? So yeah, how does that work? Really uncomfortably and awkwardly sometimes. Because we walk in dealing with our preconceived ideas. I have to carry it all the time. Those of you who know my work at Calvary, there are people who would never set foot in my gathering because I wear the title of chaplain or pastor. And so there's a preconceived idea about what that means. There are old past experiences and memories, kind of like make you hesitant to want to walk in. And they're just like there are trauma triggers in life for other things, there's religious triggers too. Triggers of condemnation, triggers of judgment, triggers of fear that this God who is so apart from me is out there. The big man upstairs, the Swedish God in the pictures with the sheep hanging over one shoulder and 3 children on his sandaled feet and leg and blue eyes. It's amazing. So we all know Jesus was not Swedish, he was Hispanic. So, I don't know why. Wouldn't that sound a lot better if Jesus would have talked like, hey, Essa, come on, man. You guys know the commandments? Let me dumb it down a little bit, okay? I'll give you 2. Forget the 10, I'll give you 2. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and your soul and your mind and your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And there you go. Those 2 gutters of the bowling alley, and you don't have to worry about gutter balls. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and your mind and your soul and your strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Today I want to talk about the loving your neighbor part because it's hard. That's a hard one. It's much easier to go into yourself in isolation and solitude and pray and grow intimately with God, and then you got to deal with knuckleheads, right? And what's harder even still is that God is saying that he is in them. It's much easier for me to deal with them if I believe that they're not in because they're not doing the right thing, believing in the right God, or performing the right way. It's easier for me if I can think that there's a reason why I should dislike them. A reason why I should cast them off. And it would seem to make it a lot easier. If I have to think that they have the breath of God in them, I have to think about that. Oh, that's hard. It's really hard. Man, right when I think I get it down, you guys, and I'm teaching every day and preaching every Sunday, and I think I got it, and then I go and have to deal with somebody in customer service. Every stinking time, right? I'm taking a break. It's my day off. I could just put some shorts on and go get coffee somewhere, and then I'll go to Sprouts to get a couple of things, and I go into Sprouts, and there's this guy behind the deli counter, and he thought he was Mr. Charisma, having fun with all the co-workers. And I'm standing there waiting for a while, and I was just watching, and I wasn't upset or anything. I mean, it was taking a while, but I still didn't know. It takes me forever to decide what I want anyway, right? And so I'm looking in there, and I tend to do this a lot. You know, it doesn't mean a thing. It means that I was born with eyebrows that go in and look like I'm going to, you know, shoot a crossbow, I guess. I don't know, you know. And so I'm like this. I could be incredibly happy and going like this. And then people go, what's wrong? And it's just so frustrating. So here I was behind the counter, like looking in the deli case. And this guy, Mr. Charisma, he's from about 8 feet away, says, I'll be with you in a minute. Don't forget to smile. Get a smile and a Coke, and you give it the smile, and I'll give you a Coke. And I said, I'm standing there, and I'm like, tell me to smile. Dare tell me to smile. Don't you hate it when people tell you to smile? You know? And I'm trying to think of something traumatic I could tell him. You don't know what I'm going through right now, and you hurt me, you know. But I couldn't do that. I couldn't make the crap up, you know. So I'm just like I let it go, right? Let it go. Yeah. No. He's waiting on somebody else, and I'm like, I think I need to let him know for his own good that that's not a good presentation. Yeah, I know. I'm pushing the cart around. You'd think I'd be able to save myself at some point. No, I'm a master of words. And the morality cop, which is part of my false self, that I have embarrassed myself in life many times because I had to use my morality cop. I'm going to speak my mind about what they're doing or what's going on here or what that kid did or whatever. I don't know if anybody else is like that. You got a morality cop in you? It's amazing how much of a scoundrel we can be in our own life, and yet we're a morality cop for everyone else, right? And so the morality cop in there is now pushing the cart, and I'm in the little kid seat, you know? And I'm going around the Sprouts, and I'm like looking, and there's this one lady at the counter. She's been there forever. Waiting on her, and I'm like, you know, there's not going to be anybody after her, and I can go and let them. And I wandered towards that area. Finally, I just went near her, and I'm looking in the dairy case like this, like deli case, like I'm still trying to decide. I'm looking for the opening to just let him know I'm trying to save him from hell. Okay, so customer service hell, you know. So I stand there, and then she's irritated. Now that's going to justify everything I'm about to say. Because she goes, all I want is a couple slices of bologna and some cheese. Like this. And he's like, okay, you know, like this. And he's Mr. Charisma some more like this. And so finally I said, hey, listen. I said, don't ever tell someone to smile. You have no idea why they might not be smiling, or maybe my face is just stuck that way, and I can't do anything about it, and he interrupts me. Don't tell me not to smile, don't tell me to smile, and don't interrupt me. Hold on and wait a minute. And I let him know. I said, you know what, I'm just telling you right now, you think you're funny, but you're not. Oh my gosh, what a line. Okay, that's the kind of thing teachers said, right? And I walk away. I go find the manager. Just let him know it's my Sprouts, man. Come on. Got to make sure, you know. And then I go and read the last chapter of Ragamuffin Gospel for today. And it's on mercy. Yeah, I know it sucks. And I said, God, this is for the people of the community of the Wild Goose, not for me. Why are you doing this to me? I'm just the no. You're not the messenger. You are one of. You are the honking goose today. Not the one that's flying beautifully with the pack. And I read, and it talked about this idea of mercy. And I started thinking about the idea of what mercy is. Mercy is when action is not taken from the person who has the power. Mercy is when you don't take action. You have the power to, and you don't take action. You let it go. That letting go aspect of it that we hear over and over and over again produces in us a fear that we're going to get taken advantage of. That fear that, you know, who do you think you are? You're not going to take advantage of me. I'm going to have to protect myself and guard myself. Part of freedom in Christ is letting go of self-protection. Not because we become defenseless, but because we have a Father who is our defender. Because we have a compassionate God who knows where the real dangers are. When I'm trying to put out small fires, He's trying to protect me from a hellfire. And He loves me in that aspect of it as I'm trying to self-protect. But I don't want to let go of what I'm right with. It's just good customer service, God. Mercy. The only way that I can be that way is if I've forgotten the mercy that God has shown to me. Mercy is not just about giving, but it's about receiving. It's like a teeter-totter, all right? And I got to tell you, I've always been afraid of heights. I still don't think I could get on a teeter-totter. That's a scary proposition because it takes you and another person. That's ridiculous. You know what's going to happen, right? You're going to go all the way up, and that guy's going to get off. I've seen it done. When I was little, I saw it done, right? I'm like, I'm not going to be that guy. You know, I'm not going to be the one that gets all the way to the top, and then you get off, and it goes boom, right? And you have soreness back there forever. You can't sit down. And, you know, no way. So when you're up in the air, you have to risk. You have to risk that view, that exhilaration. You have to risk that excitement and put your trust that somebody isn't going to let you go flying down. And we assign that fear to God, that He is on the bottom of the teeter-totter. And He's going to get off and He's going to let me fall. He's going to let me fall. And it's going to be only for my own good because He loves me so much He wants to teach me a lesson. That's not a loving God, by the way, you guys. He teaches me a lesson with what I do, not with what He does. He teaches me out of the natural consequences that come out of what I do, not what He does. He joins with me in my difficulty and in my suffering. He's with me when I am attempting to fly and experience life in its fullness. He's with me up there. And as I scream, I don't trust that dude, God. And He doesn't say, no, trust me, I'll catch you when you fall. He says, I don't trust Him either. And I get that. But this is the way it works. But I'll never leave you or forsake you. And I'll go through this with you. Mercy is not giving somebody when you have the power to judge, when you have the power to condemn, when you have the power to hurt, when you have the justification, to be able to say you were wrong and I'm not going to let you off the hook, or I'm going to let you off the hook. When you have the power, mercy is when you choose to recognize that God has been merciful to you, that God has been merciful to me. You know, I've been that guy behind the counter before, many times. I've been on the other side of pretty much everything I've ever done. I don't know if that's true for you. I just don't remember the times when I was the perpetrator. I only remember the times I was the victim. Those are the ones I'm concentrating most of the time on. This isn't to judge or condemn ourselves. It's to recognize the glorious mercy of God. It's to recognize that God is the only one who has the power to judge and condemn, and He chooses not to. You guys, if there is any element or fragment or fraction of judgment in your understanding of God, or from where you come from or what you've been taught, you need to start all over again. Because our God is a merciful God. And if He is a merciful God, then the narrative of His death is for no reason at all. Because you can't go any lower to serve somebody but then to die for them. And you can't give any greater response to anything but love, and that's what we've gotten. If we don't accept it and understand it and receive it and acknowledge it, then we'll never be able to experience the joy of this journey of realizing our knuckleheadedness in those moments. because they come to our awareness and our attention. I can focus on what a knucklehead I am in that situation, or I can recognize I forgot for a minute. I forgot who I am. I forgot who I am, and God forgive me for not recognizing, maybe he did deserve it. Is it my job? Maybe there is a better way to do it and have that conversation, but is it my job? Because my eyes got taken off. I'm living in that past. I'm feeling things are unjust, and I don't know how to give mercy. Take a look at this story of Jesus. As the soldiers led him away, they seized Simon from Cyrene, who was on his way in from the country, and put the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. Oh, let's see. Let me move down a little bit. You don't have this with you. I didn't give it to you. Yeah, you're not allowed to read the Bible. Sorry. Two other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place called the Skull, they crucified him there along with the criminals, one on his right, the other on his left. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Now, I do want to make a comment that we concentrate on that part of what Jesus said, but he said some nasty things on the way in. He was telling some people, he said, we don't like to read this stuff, but Jesus turned and he said, daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, weep for yourselves and for your children. For the time will come when you will say, blessed are the childless women, the wombs that have never borne, and the breasts that have never been nursed. Whoa! Okay, so we want to focus on the other one, where he says, forgive them, for they know not what they... He was a human being. He was a human being, feeling everything. Those kinds of things should tell us, not, he had authority. He was a human being, experiencing everything. And if you knew something they didn't know, you'd want to say something like that. Look, if you only knew, right? Then he says, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. And the people below him are dividing up his clothes and casting lots. And the people stood watching, and the rulers even sneered at him. And they said, he saved others, let him save himself if he is God's Messiah, the chosen one. They were mocking him. They were mocking him. I posted on Community of the Wild Goose. We have a Facebook page called the Community of the Wild Goose. Please get on there and become friends on there. And we're getting a little better at communicating more on that. And the messages from Sunday morning are on there too. You can listen to them. But I posted something that my son had sent me. That he was just stunned when he saw this, and I'm not big on being in the professional athlete world, not as a professional athlete, but as something else. But don't laugh. So I know it was stunning with my physique and presentation that I wasn't a linebacker or something, but I really don't like it when athletes and actors and entertainers are either exploited or they exploit who they are as though Jesus needs an endorsement. He doesn't need a toothpaste endorsement from anybody. I don't like to say, hey, you should believe in Jesus because he does too. I don't like that. But there are some times when you see somebody who has worn a mask, who has been a professional, who has been in high-profile positions, who has been an entertainer, and they humbly speak from a point of authenticity, not about endorsing anything, but just saying, I'm one of you. Please don't hold me up here. I'm one of you. And that happened. Richard Rohr, who I quite often quote, a Franciscan priest, actually joins with Jim Carrey and spoke at the Homeboy Industries in East LA. If you're unfamiliar with that, they have an incredible outreach for incarcerated people, and they're cooking and they're sending out their bread to stores everywhere. They have doctors that do tattoo removal. They have every aspect of it. These guys are just on fire for doing things for other people, and yet some of them are still incarcerated. It's pretty amazing. It's called Homeboy Industries. Look them up. You can buy, my sister was telling me that they sell Homeboy Industry salsa in the Ralphs in California. And so here's these guys, these tough guys. They're incarcerated, and Jim Carrey is standing in the middle of them in this YouTube. You got to watch it. And he is, and he spoke the message that we speak here at the Community of the Wild Goose. He talks about how we get up in the morning and we're gonna put on the show, right? Of all people to say that, I think he would be qualified to speak on that, not knowing who I am when I wake up in the morning. And he told the guys, he said, I've had challenges too in the last couple of years. I've had challenges and about that identity and the suffering. And you know what he told them? I told you how we'll never have the greatest marketing message coming out of the Community of the Wild Goose because we don't brag about the fact that we have a worship team. We have that little speaker right now. I'm still dreaming and waiting for the guy or the girl that just walks up and just starts sharing their music, and then we'll have it, but it'll be out of an expression of who they are, not to kind of like dazzle you and move you into a place of surrender. It'll be just more of an expression. Until then, we got UE Boom, Bluetooth, and I'm cool with that. We'll never have the greatest message. We'll never be able to say we have a Starbucks right outside our doors, you know. We'll never be, well, we might, but we won't have to market it that way. The message here is, please join us in suffering. What kind of a message is that? I don't think there's any PR person that would want to jump on that bandwagon, you know? What's your key? Join into the suffering. Jim Carrey starts talking about it, and he tells these guys, he says, suffering is what will take us into intimacy with God when we allow God to suffer with us. And he says, that's why you guys are my heroes. He says, I didn't know how to suffer. I felt a victim of my suffering until I let the suffering of Christ join with me in my... This is Jim Carrey. And he's telling this beautiful idea. He says, you want to know what the Eucharist is? He says, when you guys bake bread and you share it with people who are hungry, that's the Eucharist. That's the body and blood of Christ. Jim Carrey, Richard Rohr, Franciscan priest in the background, is going like this as Jim Carrey's talking. On my Facebook page, I get 2 comments. One said, "It's a joke coming from Jim Carrey." Yeah. And the other one said, "All Catholics already know this." Not everybody's going to be able to see through the surface aspect of it. But isn't it the same said to a celebrity about a celebrity that is said about an addict? You know? Oh, well, you know, those poor children over there working on something. You know, maybe one day they'll get it together and they jump on their addictive-caused yacht and float away. We're the luckiest people in the world, you guys, because we've come to the end of ourselves. We've come to the end of what we thought defined us. You know, I was thinking on the way over here this morning that idea of there is a narrow way, there's a narrow way, and I think Jim Carrey spoke about that when he said that. There is a narrow way, and there's no other way into intimacy with God than through this. You know what it's called? It's called a birth canal. It's a passageway. And there's a lot of labor pains that go on. But if you keep refusing that process of birth, you won't have new birth. Resurrection is coming out the other side. New birth that ends up out of the suffering that you allow yourself to be a part of and let Christ with you. That's the narrow way. The narrow way is non-resistance. The narrow way is breathing through it. You know? Women having children with no medication are the most heroic women in the world. They're taught to breathe through it. No, isn't there another way around it? I mean, even if you were medicated, there's still only one route. It's a narrow way. That's why being called to suffering is the only message that can be preached when it comes to freedom and resurrection living and being able to give mercy It's out of my suffering that I wake up in Sprouts and go, what the heck am I doing? Why am I judged? Why am I doing that? I've been saved from a whole lot worse than what that guy was doing behind the deli counter. I might not get over my frustration about the customer service, but at the same time, I could at least embrace the mercy of God in this moment and then laugh about my humanity and get a bit of a sense of humor and not take myself so seriously that I'm not taking God seriously. The only way you can get there is through that narrow way and that birth canal of realizing how bad we need God's mercy. And if we keep trying to fix ourselves and get it together and smooth it over and travel around it and put a spin on it before other people instead of just laying it out there and saying, you know what, I can't do this. I've been exposed. I'm naked. I'm exposed. I'm an absolute knucklehead. Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. And then the people stood watching, and the rulers even sneered at him, and they said, he saved others, let him save himself if he is God's Messiah, the chosen one. The soldiers also came up and mocked him, and they offered him wine vinegar and said, if you are king of the Jews, save yourself. Where is your God? One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. Aren't you the Messiah? Why don't you save yourself and save us? And the other criminal rebuked him. He said, don't you fear God? Since you are under the same sentence, we are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong. And then he said, Jesus, please remember me in your kingdom. And I'm going to add some words that aren't said in here. He'll deal with me later. She said, remember when you come into your kingdom. Remember me when you come into your kingdom. The reality of that man on the cross, the reality of Jesus, he was saying, you know what? You're in my kingdom right now. I will have the final say on your life. I will have the final say on your judgment. I will have the final say on whether you drop from the top of the teeter-totter or you stay up there long and enjoy the view. I will have the final say. You might get dropped. I'm not going to lie. In this world, there will be trouble. But a mere posterior wound will be nothing in comparison to the joy that awaits. Because I won't let anything happen to your soul. Your physical body may experience some things you don't want it to, but that's the way this earth and this life happens. Things happen, but I will never leave you or forsake you, and I'll go through this with you. I will be with you unto the ends of this earth. But in this case, sir, he says, the kingdom is today. You will be with me in paradise. When we understand the mercy of God over our lives, we understand that he is king. And the earthly kings take second place. And he will have the final say. That he is judge over judges. King over kings. And he will reign over my life. I might as well relax and take it now. And that's why Paul said every time he began to suffer later on, I consider my present suffering nothing in comparison to the joy that awaits me. It says in Scripture that Stephen was one of those guys that were mocking and casting lots for his clothes. I believe it was Stephen. And as he has another chance, and Peter has another chance in him too, that when they started to suffer the punishment, the earthly punishment of whips to the back, it was almost as though they were beginning to feel a swell of joy and glory in spite of their physical circumstances. Why? It's because they remembered the suffering of Christ, and they're like, he shared in my suffering, I'm sharing in his. That's just something I can't comprehend and understand. Because we find out that mere flesh wounds are nothing in comparison to the resurrection of the heart and the soul and the spirit. And that's what will allow our bodies to go into this world and wherever we have to go. Why shouldn't I show mercy to Lewis behind the counter? when there's so much joy to be had. I wouldn't do teeter-totter with him, not after what I did. But I will with God. I will with God. And that's the only trust that he's calling me to. The table that we celebrate here, it's not a Catholic table, it's not a Protestant table, or any other religion table. It's a meal sharing that includes all of them and says that you're welcome, the agapava love of God, you're welcome to experience it, to take part in it. If you feel a little embarrassed to come up and partake, if you feel like maybe you're not good enough, if you feel a bit unworthy to take the symbol of that brokenness, if you feel a little bit awkward, well, just know that all of those things are true. And we're all the same. So we come stumbling and awkward, but we come joyful that we were never expected to be perfect and holy and just. That in our own simple way we were guilty and the condemnation was imminent. Then the rescue came, and we realized that we weren't being saved from our sins or saved from hell. We were saved from ourself, saved from our self-hatred and self-rejection. And you know what? You don't even have to feel better. Just know that even though I still feel those things, it will never define me again, and they will dissipate as I spend more time in meal sharing with the God who loves me. And he said, my body, you guys, my friends, is broken for you. And it's not that I am suffering your behavior or suffering because you can't get it together. What I'm saying is I am broken with you in your brokenness, so we join in brokenness together. The body has been broken for you. And then he went to the disciples and he said, while you were gone, I went to Safeway and got some juice, because there's a lot of people that can't drink the other stuff. So, and he said, but you know what? There's a miracle that's going to take place. As I'm pouring it, guess what happened? Nothing. It's still juice from Safeway. Kind of funny how he did that. He says, but what is righteous and what is holy and what is perfect is your willingness to share in a cup of it with me, sharing in my sufferings, and I share in your sufferings, and let that be a symbol. And he took some, and he said, listen, I know you're hungry, but this isn't all we're going to eat. Okay, we'll have a buffet later, but for right now, take and eat. This represents my body and my blood. This represents my call to you that says you are everything you need to be. This is my call to you to say, never allow your circumstances or your knuckleheadedness and sprouts to define you. Let it be part of your brokenness and your journey. And when you awake and realize and come to your senses, do it again, and do it in community, and share it with one another. Heavenly Father, thank you. Thank you that you have called us. That God, you have done all the work, and that we are simply attempting to grasp which has grasped us, to step into what has already taken hold of us. And we do this, God, by having a meal with each other and with you. This must be what it means to love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength, and to say yes, and at the same time to see myself as part of the community in my awkwardness. And I shall no longer let shame define me. Amen. Please come and feel free to take a piece like this, dip it in there. Please take a big enough chunk to where you don't have to go fishing your bread out. Okay, go ahead.